personally, I don't see this as a big thing. We'll get to that here in a little bit later, but just hold on to your heads, guys. Don't be freaking out about this whole thing. It's going to take a little bit of time. Let this marinate, and they'll figure it out. So joining us here talking about the Washington Commanders and what a surprising season that it was for everybody when they made it all the way to the NFC Championship last season. And to discuss that, David Harrison joins us. What seemed like last year, David, is that the season was unpredictable for a few reasons. Because number one, new owner, new GM, new coach, and new quarterback. And it seemed like Washington fans, this was the start of something interesting. And then all of a sudden, you get Dan Quinn, who, in my opinion, I thought was a very good hire because of the fact of defensive-minded coach. He's going to get this right. It's bringing in more of a tougher culture to where you're going to end up getting this, the juice rejuvenated in D.C. And then all of a sudden you draft up Jayden Daniels. And then you put all of that together and to equal an NFC championship appearance. Dude, that's the most unpredictable thing. And now to go into this year where now they really got to take advantage of the window that's now opened up for them. How did you really evaluate this past season? And now with them going and getting Deebo Samuel, how they're going to end up reacting for this up-and-coming season? Because it was unpredictable, but I said to people, this team would finish second, but I didn't think they'd get further than they did in the playoffs.
Yeah, man. I mean, last year was just a roller coaster ride of emotions, right? And really, when you look at it, entering the season, it was all about evaluation. It really was just a year where you got a lot of one-year contracts. Not a lot of the Commanders who had expiring contracts were brought back. So obviously you have your drafted players, and it was just about establishing a culture, establishing what the Washington Commanders were going to look like under Dan Quinn and Adam Peters. And then from there, figure out who fits, figure out who doesn't, replace who doesn't fit, keep the guys that do fit, so on and so forth. And then this year you do the same thing, but it's a little bit more. Next year it's a little bit more. And like you just talked about, like all the success that they had, like they nailed their algorithm, so to speak. They knew who they wanted. They knew what kind of characteristics they were looking for. So they went out and they got those guys in free agency, in the draft. And it just clicked. You know what I mean? It's a group of guys that really just kind of clicked at the right time and really got rolling. And then, into the playoffs, just playmakers making plays. This year, they kind of did the same thing. Let the guys who don't fit go and bring in new guys who you think fit what you're trying to do. Only now you have it established. There's a culture here. There's a standard here. So now you know what it is these guys are walking into, and these guys accept that challenge of, Dietrich Wise, Jonathan Jones from the Patriots. They know what they're walking into with the Commanders, and it's on them now to deliver on the promise they made to fit in.
So, it's interesting because Washington initially, they flirted with the idea of potentially matching the contract for Lamar Jackson at one point, but then it ended up staying put in Baltimore. Well, now they ended up getting somewhat of a Lamar Jackson-esque player, but I will argue this. I think Jayden, what I've said to people is he's a snap-and-go quarterback. Once the ball is in his hands, he has a certain window, and I think a lot of that is just, he's practiced that many times. He's also come into game speed and studying film where he's adapting to it, to where he either makes a decision of one of two things. He either will tuck the ball in and run if the opportunity presents itself, or he's going to find somebody even in the short or even up and into the midfield and create that to where it's marching the offense downfield. I mean, I think with Jayden Daniels, he's in a very good situation to where there's positive momentum adding on for the Commanders. But now I think, too, because I think about the offensive line, I think about, too, with the offensive weapons as of recently, because we know there's been a lot of buzzes through that. So Jayden Daniels, he's a perfect example of facing adversity. What are we going to expect from him this up-and-coming season now that he's got a full season on his belt?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is even more so than what you expect out of Jayden Daniels is what do you expect from the offense around him. Last year, obviously Terry McLaurin is one of the top receivers in the game, but behind them, you had basically a collective of number two receivers. And while it worked, and obviously, it did pretty good things for them, there was an obvious, effort into going and getting a true blue number two receiver in Deebo Samuel. So you have that trade come in. Then the offensive line, while the Washington Commanders finished in the top 10 for fewest sacks given up, they finish in the bottom 10 with pressures given up. So what that tells you very clearly is it's your quarterback preventing pressures from becoming sacks that make you, rank so high in the lack of sack department. So they went out there and they got Laramie Tunsil. They drafted Josh Connerly Jr. in the first round, all in an effort to make their offensive line, better across the board so that Jayden has better protections. Because one thing that Jayden does really well is, sometimes it's actually funny. You look at a given play and you think, man, he went from read 1 to 2 to 3, found that third window super quick, made that throw. What fast processing he has and everything else. And it's not necessarily wrong. He does have very quick processing, but in reality, a lot of times in those plays, he already knew that third read was the read that he actually wanted. But he also understands that in order to get that third read open, I've got to give this look over here. I've got to give this second look over here in order to get these guys to go where I want them to go, so that when I get back to this third look, it's open and I deliver the ball. And that's something you don't see from a lot of rookies and a lot of young quarterbacks. And as the season progressed, he got better and better at doing that. But then he also got better and better at understanding when it's time to take off, when it's time to extend the play, when it's time to hold the ball and see what you can develop. So now into year 2, you're looking for just the evolution of that process. Get even smarter, get even more comfortable, and now get into where you're commanding the offense. And I don't mean to use that as a pun, but that's just the verbiage that you use. You know what I mean? And even in OTAs, you're seeing him not just correct guys, like say, hey, get another step on the line of scrimmage, or hey, you back up a little bit. I mean, there were moments in their no huddle drills where you're literally seeing him set 4 skill position players, say, no, I want you here, I want you here, I want you here, you here, giving signals, giving commands, basically crafting a play almost at the line of scrimmage. And that's really kind of the next step of the evolution of Jayden Daniels.
So a quick one here for you, because we know that you've been hearing a lot of the buzzes regarding Terry McLaurin and like the entire contract situation. To me personally, I mean, a lot of players have been going through this, and this is always the usual during mini camps, is because a lot of players are expecting a new lengthy long-term contract. I think Terry McLaurin really serves as a pivotal piece in this offense, and especially with the growth build for what he's put together. I mean, he's gone through multiple quarterbacks until he started to come across Jayden Daniels and really took it a step further. Well, I feel like this is now starting to get pushed because of a few reasons. Noah Brown now got carted off out on the practice, and then you got Deebo Samuel, who I think is just that perfect yards after catch ability receiver that Jayden Daniels is going to love, especially for that snap and go type of scheme, to where he can dump the ball off and then you can create yards after you make the catch. So is there going to be a deal done? Because I personally I don't think this is going to be easy for Terry McLaurin to just walk out the door. And we know that negotiations are not always as refined, but they got to obviously get this deal done. You cannot afford to let this guy walk out the door.
Yeah, no, Terry's not going anywhere. That deal is going to get done. It's just a matter of when, not if, and what the guarantees look like, and the incentives, and the breakdown, and the bonuses, and all that stuff. And I think that for Commanders fans who are a little stressed out about it, and for fans of other teams who are like, oh, the longer this goes, the more likely Terry is to get traded. Like what they have to remember is this is most likely Terry's last big contract. Like this is kind of the big swing. This contract's going to take him into his 30s. And after that, it's not necessarily completely unheard of for a receiver in their 30s to get a big payday, but it's not usually it's not as common, right? So this is kind of his last big swing. And look, part of it is he's going to want to get paid for what he's been going through. He's going to want to get paid for, look at how much I've produced, with quarterbacks that are less than Jayden Daniels. Look what we did last year together with Jayden Daniels. So imagine what I can do with another year of familiarity and comfortability. Imagine what we can do in 2026 even, and so on and so forth. So a little bit of it is selling the future if you're the agent. A little bit of it is demanding recoup. Your client gets recouped for pain and suffering of what he's been going through under his current contract. And on the team side, it's like, look, we want to be able to pay other guys. We want to be able to bring in more weapons so that we can all win Super Bowls. And it's just part of the dance. You know what I mean? And there's no concern over Terry missing OTAs, Terry missing mandatory minicamp. I mean, last time he wanted an extension with a much worse team than this one. He missed all of mandatory minicamp. He missed all of the OTAs. And all he did was go out and have a 1,000-yard season and ball out, right? So, like, there's really no concern with Terry McLaurin. I've had Commanders fans ask me, when should you get concerned? You should get concerned if training camp starts and Terry McLaurin doesn't report. That's when you should start getting concerned. Until then, enjoy the dead period, right? Enjoy the vacation.
There you go. A quick one here for you before we let you go. We have not had back-to-back division title champions in over 20 years in this division. Are we expected that to be broken or continue the chain for this upcoming season? Because they have always been an interesting division from here. But what do you think?
Yeah, listen, on paper, the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team. Like this Washington Commanders roster is incredibly talented. The Dallas Cowboys did some good work. The Giants are going to be better than they were last year. But on paper, the Eagles still have the best roster up and down. The big question there is what their new offensive coordinator is going to do, because Kellen Moore got very, very smart very, very quickly, tried to ride Jalen Hurts for the first 3 weeks of last season, didn't go very well. So then he turned to Saquon Barkley, and he rode Saquon Barkley all the way to the Super Bowl. Is this next offensive coordinator going to try to do the same thing? Can Saquon stay healthy if he does? Those are all a bunch of questions that, is going to ultimately determine what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Commanders have a lot of questions on their defensive side, and whether or not some of these new players like Wise and Javon Kinlaw and all that are really going to make them better up front against the run, which was their Achilles heel. And then, the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott healthy again, if he can stay healthy, they're always a threat. So, it's a wide open division, but it's also a very competitive division. It kind of reminds me of one of those divisions that you look at. It's almost like the SEC in college football, where if their top team gets, toppled in the college football playoffs, it's because they went through an SEC schedule and got beat up in the process. The NFC East plays the NFC North this year. The Commanders got to travel to Los Angeles. They got to travel to Madrid, Spain. Like there's just a lot of factors that happen here every single season. So, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I don't think that the division is probably going to be clinched until week 16 or so, which makes, for good football for the NFL. So it's hard to predict whether or not they're going to repeat. But, if you're playing Madden, the Eagles are probably going to pull it off. But one injury, and you knock on wood that never happens, but they do. One injury can shift the entire makeup of the entire group.
Interesting. Well, David, appreciate you for coming on by, and let our audience know where they can find more and more of your stuff here, getting locked on in the Commanders this season.
Yeah, Locked On Commanders 5 days a week, except for this week. This week I'm actually only about 3 days a week, but typically 5 days a week. And then Sports Illustrated, the CommanderGameDay.com website. And if you're local, WUSA 9, the CBS affiliate in DC, you can also find me there.
There you go, folks. All righty, David. We'll appreciate you for giving your insights here up onto the show, and we will see you soon, and good luck with the up-and-coming season.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're moving on to this because, I've been curious to see what, Cooper Flagg himself is going to look like once